know, there are some words I've known since I was a schoolboy. But the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censured, the first thought forbidden, the first freedom denied, chains us all irrevocably. Those words were uttered by Judge Aaron Satie as wisdom and warning. The first time any man's freedom is trodden on, we're all damaged.
Hey everybody, so that was a clip from Star Trek The Next Generation, and it's from an episode called The Drumhead, and that episode dealt with kangaroo courts and innuendo and basically a smoke and mirror kind of trial where, you know, one innuendo leads to another, which leads to another. But the main thing that I wanted to show that clip for was for the actual speech that Picard gave at the end of that episode, because that's true of today. We are damaged as a society when we censor people, when we censor opinion, because that, whether it be good or a bad opinion, it's not allowed to be discussed. And the danger is, if you censor a bad opinion, that opinion goes underground and it festers and it grows into something else. Whether if it's put into the marketplace of free ideas, where it's refuted and it's shown to be for the bad idea that it is, it becomes less dangerous. Anyway, my point of this video is to talk about this, hate crimes. Now, I wanted to clarify my position on hate crimes. I don't believe hate crimes exist. I don't think hate speech exists, should I say. Hate crimes do exist. Physical hate crimes, where people are physically harmed by somebody because of their race, gender, or whatever, do exist. When it comes to hate speech, however, we start to deal in the realms of emotion and how people feel rather than how people act. And this is where I take issue with these things. So, this is how the Metropolitan Police, defines what a hate crime is. So they go to say this: a hate crime is defined by any criminal offence which is perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on a person's race or perceived race, religion or perceived religion, sexual orientation or perceived sexual orientation, disability or perceived disability, and any crime motivated by hostility or prejudice against a person who is transgendered or perceived to be transgendered. Now, do you see an issue with how they define what a hate crime is? It's about people's feelings. So if somebody feels that somebody else has been prejudiced against somebody else, that's a crime. That can be considered a crime. We're not dealing in the realms of evidence where if something physically happens to somebody, there's evidence of that. Now we're dealing in the realms of criminalising feelings, which is what I take issue with, because you can't do that, because feelings are subjective. And this is wide open to abuse by certain groups of people to get other people arrested and cancelled. Because if you've got a malicious nature and you see somebody having a debate with someone, and then you don't like the fact that the debate is taking place, so you decide to shut that debate down by saying that that person is being hateful or is being prejudiced towards someone, you can now weaponise these hate speech laws to shut down people that you don't agree with. That's the danger of these types of laws. So here we have types of hate crime. Physical assault. Obviously, that's a separate law all unto itself. If you commit assault, then yeah, perfectly right, you should go to jail or prison or whatever, because you physically hurt somebody. It's the next one that I take issue with. It's the verbal abuse. There's no way in hell that verbal abuse should be criminalised. No crime has been committed. This is when we get into the hurty feelings side of things, and where I feel people just need to grow a thicker skin and deal with it. We've all had it through our lives. Every single person has had verbal abuse in their life. And as I've said before, how you deal with words is on you. You're in control of that. You can decide whether somebody affects you by using hurty words towards you. You have a choice. You can just dismiss it. You can say, I'm not bothered about that. It doesn't bother me. And just shrug it off and carry on. This type of law encourages victimhood mentality. That I'm always a victim because somebody's hurled abuse at me. Anyway, we'll go and see what it says. Verbal abuse. Verbal abuse, threats, or name calling can be common and extremely unpleasant experience for minority groups. Not just minority groups, everybody. Everybody. Why that has to be in there, I don't know, but it is. If somebody's shouting at you in the street, no matter who you are, it can be very disturbing. Victims of verbal abuse are often unclear whether an offence has been committed or believe there is little they can do. However, there are laws in place to protect you from verbal abuse. There shouldn't be any laws protecting you from somebody shouting at you in the street, because this is nebulous. This can be perceived by any way it wants to be perceived, because it's subjective. If somebody is in the street and they're saying they're counter protesting someone, and they're saying things that you don't agree with, and so therefore you start shouting at them and saying, I don't agree with that, that that there are things, and sometimes these things get heated, swearing can take place and all that kind of stuff, and then you're just refuting what the person is saying, and someone comes along, a third party person, not necessarily the person that you're having an argument with, decides, well, I feel offended by that, so therefore that's now a hate crime. Do you see where this is going? They're crazy. They shouldn't exist, right? I don't think hate speech crimes or legislating against hate speech should even exist, because laws already exist. If you say untrue things about people, either online or out in the street, there are laws already out there to take care of that. You have libel laws if it's written on the internet, or you say things on the internet that aren't true about somebody, and there's slander laws as well. So if you say it out in the street, if you say it out in the open, there are laws to take care of those things. And the most thing we should take away from that is those two laws are civil in nature. They're not criminal. So these things should never should never become criminality whatsoever. It's only when things turn physical and violent regarding people being hurt and injured, that's what the law is there for. That's what the law is there to stop. That type of action, not speech. Speech is not violence. Words are not violent, because the onus is on you. If somebody's saying something nasty to you or shouting at you, you've still got control over that. You have choices. You can ignore it and you can walk away. That's what you can do. These things should never have been criminalised. But it's not about protecting people. That's the whole point of this. These supposed hate speech laws are not about protecting people from hate or hurty words. It's about control. It's about shutting down conversation. Uncomfortable conversation that the establishment doesn't like. That's what all these laws are about. I just wanted to clarify what my position was on this. I don't believe in hate speech. Hate speech doesn't exist. Just free speech. Of course, there are consequences for the things you say, and you should always choose your words carefully. But that should be up to society to decide. If you shout racist remarks at people in the street, you should be socially condemned by the people around you, and most likely you would be. That's the consequences of you saying those things. It should never be a criminal act whatsoever. So society itself takes care of that type of thing. If you're typing shitty things on the internet towards people online, then people are going to use their free speech to counter what you're saying and tell you you're a real piece of shit back. That's how it works. That's how it should be dealt with. It shouldn't be the job of the police to come online and police what people are saying to each other or out in the real world. They should be out there dealing with actual physical crime. That's my feelings on this. Anyway, this is Vindicator signing off.